Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. As part of the Squeal and Squark. This audio podcast is part of the Haller Squad. This audio podcast as part of the Ship Mode Unit. This audio podcast is part of a ZtormLabostix Production. In and through this audio podcast today, looking at a question: how can the industry or how can the sciences better support the next generation? And There, in as part of this, in a part of the this in a part of the this audio podcast, to highlight that that there's no one best way to sort of answer or respond to this particular question because in around the sciences. And perhaps like that, unlike that of other healthcare professions, it is where the sciences doesn't really have a patient facing basis. So so those who are within the sciences within the sciences that most of their workings or their efforts are sort of from and within laboratory environs, but also in around sort of in around where most of their sort of times are behind that of sort of patient facing environs. Um, so uh, so I suppose and seeing that that it will be sort of biomedical science day, and I suppose in around sort of where there's been efforts in around the healthcare professional science workforce, in around and within the remit of biomedical science day. I suppose the one of the better ways to see that the next generation are supported in around the industry, or in around the sciences, is to see or to encourage or prompt that there are more collaborative efforts. So that is to say that that irrespective of the gradings of those within the sciences, and irrespective of, for example, where the next generation, or students are within in context of their gradings, in their gradings, whether at undergrad or at postgrad, or at, whether they're doing their placements, or whether they're getting work experiences, yeah, or whether they are within, whether they're at different gradings within the healthcare science, whether they're in different gradings of the science workforce generally or generically, that actually one of the best ways, one of the better ways to support that sort of the generations is to actually see, is to actually encourage that they are that there are sort of that there are pathways, or efforts, whereby irrespective of where individuals are in the industry, or where they are within the sciences, for example, irrespective of where they are, for example, in their in their learnings, or in their developing of their practices, for example, that one of the better ways is to see that there are collaborative efforts, irrespective of whether, again, whether individuals are still learning or still developing works, or whether they are actually within laboratory environs, or whether they are, where they are doing, whether they're looking to get work experiences, or whether they're getting whether they have placements, or whether they are developing, whether they're developing or developing sort of their works in the form of manuscripts for publication, etc. That there is a pathway for collaboration irrespective, and then by having that by having that, or by seeing that there is that way, or that there are those sorts of ways in context of collaborations, that actually it is where uh, where um, where uh, where where irrespective of the different gradings or the efforts that the work that the science workforce is within, or people or individuals are within, then irrespective of that they actually have opportunities through collaborative efforts to develop evidence-based practices and develop new or contribute to new knowledge in around aspects of pathology and sort of blood sciences, etc. So that the industry can advantage and advance through that sort of collaborative through collaborations, and in such a way that the next generation of the science workforce, for example, have a mindset that within the laboratory, that they actually, apart from their sort of workings or sort of routine workings in laboratory environments, that they have opportunities to actually put their sort of inquisitive nature into developing sort of writings around asking important questions. So, for example, why a patient might have such and such a healthcare condition, or why there is this particular specimen that comes this particular specimen for this particular kind of healthcare condition, or this aspect, or in around this aspect of pathophysiology. And for example, where those inquisitive questions then actually can help form sort of form sort of prompt into delving into literature around particular themes and topics, and that way future generations can actually see that their learnings can actually develop into actually develop, where their work can develop a sort of an effort between between laboratory environments into aspects of evidence, aligned to evidence, or developing evidence-based practices. And that's important because it's important because one of the main things is that in around different health and different sort of illnesses or different symptomologies, there's always sort of advances in around particular sort of particular pathways of particular illnesses, etc. But at the same time, whilst there's that, it is where the developing of or delving into literature to develop sort of evidence-based works is actually where the healthcare science workforce or the sciences has an advantage, has a particular advantage, because there is that sort of default of where the healthcare where professionals within the sciences have 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 access, or are a profession that tend to have access to sort of to in around particular sort of advances in where healthcare services in around particular illnesses could be better, or can be made better. So there is that, and so the new generations can learn from sort of evidence-based practices, and actually contribute to developing a novel or new evidence, new evidence in around particular aspects of laboratory practices or blood sciences, etc. So I think that 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 again, irrespective of where a professional is, or where a science a healthcare where a science professional is within their where a science professional is within their specialties, for example, or where they are in their learnings, etc., that they are prompted or encouraged to actually to actually sort of use that sort of inquisitive, or have that inquisitive sort of mindset, where they actually then where they can develop novel works, and see a link, or a link between sort of traditional sort of laboratory environment workings, and in line to sort of in line to evidence-based practices. So that's some of the ways, or one of the main ways, I guess, that the industry or the sciences could better support the next generation. Just to also say here that that because it can be difficult for that in amongst the public domain, for example, to understand or appreciate sort of different aspects of the sciences. Um, uh, it's important that sort of next generation professionals, or different gradings of individuals within the sciences, that they also have a mindset that they link their works to aspects of public health. Now, public health is quite a sort of quite a generic profession, since that most of what comes from public health is where there are topics across the genre, if you will, that actually look to develop or link their evidences in around different topics, in around topics of the sciences, but also in line to in around different specialties of medical practices or clinical practices, for example, in some way or other or another. But in context of the sciences, it's actually where individuals who learn around or develop their works in around the sciences primarily see their works, or sort of see that their works are in around a particular division of the sciences, and then actually the public health aspect is often actually not as appreciated as it should be, or it could be. And so next generation individuals within the sciences, for example, should develop works in such a way that they can actually link their learnings into in line to topics of that are pertinent or important around public health as well. So in that way, there's a sort of a unison, or a sort of a unified link between that of what is talked about in context of public health, but also in context of how the sciences is important or pertinent in aspects of public health, in of as itself, because most topics that are in context of the blood sciences or laboratory medicine or pathology are often are often and can come across quite intimidating. And so next generation professionals or different sort of gradings of those who are in the science workforce, for example, should develop their works in such a way that they actually link their sort of efforts to where there is a sort of a basis of where the understandings in around important scientific topics that are in around sort of non in around sorry in around aspects of patient care, in around particular conditions or illnesses, that those are focuses that link that have a link to the public in around public health, a sort of in around aspects of public health as well, or and as a way and as a way of where future generation can actually sort of contribute their sort of practices in such a way that that also help increase or sort of see a basis of an increase in around apart from important topics or subjects or aspects of linking pathology, for example, or blood sciences in the public domain, but also where in amongst the public domain there is a basis of understanding sort of aspects of healthcare literacy. And healthcare literacy is a topic that is a sort of sensitive topic, but it's an important one because one of the biggest one of the biggest sort of issues or challenges in amongst healthcare services, or in amongst the sciences, or even in amongst different specialties, is different medical specialties, is that if people if the public are unaware of particular sort of terminologies, for example, it can cause, or it can be one it can be it can be perceived as a disparity or an inequality. And so the basis for the next generation is to see that aspects of health literacy are actually where in around aspects of the sciences and public health, that aspects of health literacy forms a bridge to bring more awareness in around particular important topics, such that the public domain become sort of more informed, because misinformation is and can be a problem throughout, especially in times where we have social media, and there can be sort of misinformation in around aspects, in around the use of in around aspects and pertaining to identifying particular topics, even searching through the World Wide Web, or the internet. So that's one of the things for one of the things, or some of the things for the that I would encourage, the industry to sort of the industry, or in the sciences, to better support the next generation. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast is part of the Squeal N Squark. This audio podcast is part of the Ship Mode Unit. This audio podcast is part of the Hella Squad. And this audio podcast is part of a ZtormLabostix production.